All right, welcome everyone to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I am so excited for my guest today. We are going to talk all about the woo, all about the science. We were just chatting a little bit backstage, quote unquote, and we're so aligned on so many things. It's going to be a fun conversation. First, a couple quick announcements. If you head to the links in the show notes, you will find a lot there. You'll find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. You'll find links to sponsor the podcast, to get free downloads, free masterclasses. You'll find my course. You'll find all sorts of resources there. And of course, you're going to find my amazing guest links as well. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. We are focused entirely on personal development. We have some huge personal development events going on. We just did one with Dr. Joe Vitale and Les Brown and Sharon Lecter. So check us out. And we got some great stuff coming up. Hi, I'm Kris. When I was younger, I went through trauma that caused me to feel broken and lost. But my life changed after I had a spiritual awakening. Since then, I've dedicated my life to studying and learning from masters all around the world that have helped me to create a life of fulfillment and abundance beyond my wildest dreams. Now I'm dedicated to sharing everything I've learned so that you don't have to suffer for decades like I did. I've seen people's lives completely transform, and I share it all right here. All right, so with me today, I have Lisa Marree. So Lisa is a visionary leader, multi-passionate business strategist, mindful and quantum science expert, known for her transformative approach to personal and professional development. She is on a mission to serve 1 million crazy, obsessed, purpose-driven entrepreneurs, leaders, and professionals, teaching how to go beyond ordinary to become limitless. She's all about neuroscience, epigenetics, quantum physics. So you know we're going to get along, and ancient wisdom. So welcome, Lisa. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here as well, Kris. This is going to be a very juicy conversation.
It is, yes, I know. I cannot wait. And you know, I start all my episodes the same way. So I'm gonna ask you the one question that I plan out is I want to know your origin story. So how did you get on this path where you are manifesting the life of your dreams, where you're helping these 1 million people, where you're an expert in all of these things? What led you to that moment?
Oh, a childhood of horrors is the only way to explain it. My not uncommon. My dad left when I was 4, but what he left us with was a woman who had very violent psychiatric illness. My mother um, proved that she did not want children. Um, she threatened to kill us many times. It was very physically violent, very psychologically violent, a lot of narcissism, manipulation. She was in and out of psychiatric institutions. But back in the day, because I'm 55 now, so way back then, there was not a lot of support for children. She was very, very clever as well. So she was the perfect mum on the outside, but what happened behind closed doors was horrific. And it's a very strange way to explain it, but I literally just disconnected from myself, and I was almost looking at my life as an observer, because I think that was the only way I could survive. And because every day was in fear, every day was unpredictable, and it was almost surreal now looking back on it. But I somehow I'll try and keep this front end of the story really quick. That I was at school carnival. You know how there's swimming carnivals and track carnivals. I decided I wanted to go to the swimming carnival, threw myself in the pool, nearly drowned halfway, got out and thought, hey, I want to be a swimmer. And my mother agreed to have me do swimming lessons. At the age of 6 or 7, I was exposed to champions. I was surrounded by national champions. We had an Olympian in our squad. The coaches were of leadership mindset. I had big brothers and sisters. So I actually learnt how to play mind movies of winning the race, and I was exposed to things that you wouldn't think that was sort of awareness back then, but it was. And that meant I didn't have to be at home 5 hours of the day. I swam in the morning, swam in the evening, school in the middle of the day. Um, Life got very unsettled as I was becoming a teenager. I gave up swimming because it became a very sick obsession for my mother. Because anyway, that's another story. And that's where I got exposed to a martial arts club that had metaphysics in it.
Mm.
I'd always felt like I was a little bit different. My sister was very immersed in all of the trauma, whereas I was very disconnected. And as you know, Kris, I mentioned to you when we first spoke is that my sister killed herself last October. And she could never find her way out of the darkness. And so she lived a horrible life of darkness and abuse and just one tragedy after the other. But when I was exposed to this metaphysics club, I learnt that we could move energy. I actually felt like I was at home. I felt like this is normal. And here comes some woo, I experienced astral travel. I could actually move energy because we learnt how to do chi strikes, all of these unusual things as a teenager. But as I was still trapped in this very sick environment, my body became very sick because even though I disconnected, I internalized all the fear. And because I'd lived in survival all of my life. And so from the age of 16 and onwards, I actually became very ill with multiple autoimmune conditions. I developed systemic endometriosis. I had 5 other autoimmune conditions. By the age of 33, I'd been chopped up 18 times. And I was bedridden by that time. Before that, I'd been in the army. I became a medical scientist to try and find my own health solutions, but it was very pharmaceutical driven. I just didn't connect to the Western medicine world. I knew that there was another solution. I picked up a couple of abusive husbands along the way because that's what you do, that's what you know, that's what your body's actually used to, of living in more survival. And the second husband, I'd always believed I was going to be rich. Didn't know what that meant, but I thought, hey, I watched The Bold and the Beautiful with my mother as a child because that's all that was playing on the TV. And so I thought, well, if those people can do it, so can I. I didn't know what that meant. So I got a couple of investment properties. I worked very hard. I went guarantor for my second husband in his small business that actually went broke. And we separated. I was left with a $500,000 debt. I had no home, no health, and no money. And that was by the age of 33. And as I'm sleeping on the floor in an acquaintance's house, I just thought, Lisa, how did you get yourself here? With all the things that you've been through, with all the things you've achieved, how did you get yourself here? And that was really one of the biggest defining moments in my life. I just thought, I'm never, ever going to be in this situation again. And that's what took me on to the holistic health world of I wanted to find my own health solutions because I believed I was the solution. I knew that my past was responsible for who I was at that point. And that took me into an environment where I was able to be connected to high-level personal development. As we discussed, I was very blessed to be mentored by Mr. Jim Rohn. I went from homeless and facing bankruptcy to building a multi-six-figure business, traveled the world. I literally thought the line was in the sand, and I'm burning the bridges and I'm never going back there. And that was the trajectory of me stepping into the journey of pretty much the last 20 years of mind-blowing manifestation.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Thank you for your vulnerability. You know, I have this like knee jerk reaction to be like, I'm so sorry you went through all that, because that's what people say to me when I share about my trauma, right? But I also believe that, I think you probably do too, like everything happens for a reason, and you were put on that path so that you could overcome all of those horrendous things that you went through, that just one of those things could destroy like anyone, right? um and, I just admire your story so much, your journey so much, that you came out of that and are so successful, and you've healed yourself, and now you're helping other people. It's really inspirational, and I'm sure readers, I'm so used to writing. I'm sure listeners will feel that way as well. So I just appreciate you sharing your story. And I have so many more questions now, that I want to know. We're going to talk about the the energy and the more woo woo stuff in a
Yeah.
moment, but I want to talk about the actual like physical stuff first, because I think a lot of people are going to connect to that. You said you had 18 surgeries.
Yeah.
That's a lot of surgeries. And I know when we were talking before, you said that they were all like lower chakra survival kind
Yes.
of places. Like you mentioned the endometritis. Can you talk a little bit more about like the illnesses, and then also the healing? Like, how did you end up healing yourself?
Yes. I Even though I hadn't really been exposed to understanding fully the chakra system, and there are people who don't believe, and there are people who sort of understand it's out there, and there are people who really grasp it. And so I was in the middle road, and I knew that uh, because we are energy, and the fact that I am a medical scientist, I spent 15 years looking down a microscope looking at cells, understanding that electron microscope, all we see is a bunch of atoms, and beyond that is vibrating energy. So we are
Mm.
just vibrating energy if we want to bring the science fact into it. And we emit an electromagnetic field. We can measure that. So it's really beautiful that we can. Um, Quantum science is, it's there and then it's not. Whereas science, for the people who need evidence, but I think we all have enough evidence that if we think of a friend sometimes and all of a sudden they message us and it's just like, oh, I was just thinking of you. Well, guess what? That's actually the energy field, that the two energy fields have connected. And so I knew that our body was energy. And I also knew that I had to do a heck of a lot of healing. I wasn't broken. I don't believe anybody is broken, Kris. All I believe is they've been so uh, overwhelmed with all of life's stuff, of other people creating their identity. As a kid, we're born with an empty vessel. And so when we're growing up, we can only gather data of our environment. And if our environment's toxic, that's our data.
Mm.
And so that becomes part of our cells. And so from an energetic perspective, I 90% of my disease was in below my belly button. Our first three survival chakras are from where we sit up to our solar plexus. And so I was also severely injured in the army that left me lower limb disabled. My hip joint was severely damaged. So for 33 years, I was in crippling pain and I could not walk without a walking stick. And so all the trauma, all the disease, all the pain, all the sadness, all the fear, all the anger, all the grief, all the shame was actually trapped down there. And so as I started to learn how to, I was looking for answers. I was that one of those crazy, obsessed, seeking people that I, have in my little intro of the bio, because I believed I could achieve anything. I believed I could be limitless. I played mind movies as a child swimmer. I knew I could win the race in my mind, and I went on to do that in physical body. And so when you learn how to start to release, there is a process. There's things to do in a certain order, and if you don't do them in that order, then you still remain blocked. And so for years, I tried all these different methods. And it was only really through trial and error and continuing to pursue different healing arts and different methods of um, quantum that I started to release the layers of all of that stuff that was literally destroying my body and destroying my mind along the process, because our cells become addicted to the hormones of stress. That's the epigenetics part, and we're going to talk about that. So you can start to see the links and the patterns and the connections to it all once you start identifying different areas. I had to become a different person.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just appreciate everything that you said, from looking into the microscope and knowing that atoms don't have a physical structure, right? Like that is such a mind-blowing fact, that it's a invisible vortex of spinning energy, and that is what makes us up. That's what makes up everything in the universe, right? Like I don't understand how people have everyday just small talk conversations when when that's happening, right? Like it blows my mind. Um and I love that you were talking about that you knew you were limitless. You just had to find that path there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is such a relatable thing, especially for people who listen to shows like this, where it's like I hear Joe Dispenza say that, and I hear Greg Braden say that, and I hear all these mystics say it, right? Or Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn or whoever. But it's like, okay, but then like, how do I believe that so much in every cell of my being that I'm able to make that transformation?
Yeah.
So you said that there was an order you have to do them in. Talk to me about that order. What did you discover after all this trial and error?
There is a word that is very, very powerful, and a lot of people just can't do it because they're living in so much pain and holding on to so much pain, is forgiveness. Forgiveness is the final act of love. My heart chakra was so closed, locked tight in a vault because I didn't want to get hurt. But guess what? No love comes out either. I
Mm.
was not a nice person. I was a obsessed, high achieving, get out of my way or I'll run you down kind of gal for me to gain success in the early days.
Mm.
But if people know Tony Robbins speaking of the 6 human needs, significance is actually one of them.
Yeah.
And to feel needed, because I never got nurtured. I never received love. And when you don't receive it, you don't know how to give it either. These are all learned behaviors, by the way.
Mm.
And so if we can learn a new behavior, that's what an open growth mindset is. If the lid's closed, we ain't going to get much done.
Yeah.
And so, it's about when you can open up your heart and understand that everybody suffers. Every being on this planet lives in a state of suffering, but you can still experience unfortunate things. but live with joy and happiness and inner peace in your heart. One of my biggest life quests was to find inner peace and happiness. I found that. That may be another conversation that we go into. But forgiveness actually starts to allow you to let things go. If you do not let them go, they are still part of your identity. And if you're here and you want to get here and you don't let stuff go, the baggage is too heavy. You got no room to go up there. And we have to make space for new to come in. So if you're so clogged up with all of this crap, all this garbage, all this pain, all this hate and anger and shame and grief, all of those lower chakra survival feelings, then you're not going to be able to advance.
Yeah, that is so beautifully said. And when you said there's that word, I'm like on the edge of my seat, and you said forgiveness, I just got instant goosebumps. Uh, because you're right. Because all of that stuff you hold on to is poison. And if you hold on to poison, it's just going to hurt you.
It is drinking poison every single day, hoping that the problem's going to go away.
Yeah.
And when I had a Western trained doctor. She was Chinese, but I only went to her clinic for Eastern health. We both agreed that Western medicine was there just to, if you broke your leg, to fix your leg. And she just said, Lisa, and oh my gosh, when she looked at me, like, she looked into the window of my soul. I connected with her. It was just like, wow, she just came in. It was I can't even explain it, but I felt like she was in my body. And she said, Lisa, when you understand that you have to forgive your mother, your life will change. And I said, how do I do that? I can't even be in her space. I've not spoken to my mother since I was 20. I've not spoken to her for 35 years. No contact whatsoever. She stalked me for a while, and I get, phone calls and hang up and all that kind of stuff. But she said there are many, many different ways you can go through the forgiveness process. And you can write her letters, and you don't have to post them. You can pray for her that she's living every single day in suffering, and that you hope that she finds peace in her heart. You can understand that the way she is all that she knew, and that didn't matter what anybody else was going to do or what medication they were going to give her. If she chose not to change, she was not going to change. And so I went through this it took a long time. I'm going to reference Ajahn Brahm. He is a Buddhist monk out of one of the Western Australian monasteries here, but he's a very known worldly global speaker, and he's British. And he's so funny. He had 4 ways of letting go, and I've listened to Abraham Hicks, and I've done everything, and I've gone through phases of things. And one of them was, you could write the letter and then have a little burning ritual in the backyard and just release the energy. You could tie something to a rock and then throw it into the forest and let the energy go as you do. So there are just so many different ways. There are many, many different pathways to the destination. And if you really want to change, you just have to keep doing and doing and doing and practicing and practicing and practicing, and you will undo the layers as you're going along. You might not say, why aren't I fixed yet? Because we probably won't even go into this conversation in this episode, Kris, but we don't even know what the ancestral things are. Like, what baggage were we carrying in from our previous life? that we've got to undo all this now. So, it's fascinating, and I'm forever curious.
Yeah, I love what you said it towards the end where you're like, you just have to keep trying and trying and practicing and practicing. And that really has been my path as well. Like I'm like you, I was a truth seeker. I still am, right? And I try freaking everything because there's always more, right? You come back to the same things, you're like, "Ah, I thought I healed this shit, right?" And it's there again. And there's never been like one specific healing modality that's been like that miracle cure for me. It's just been this process, and I appreciate that you said that because so many people are out there looking for that one thing, and sometimes that one thing will chip away at this, and then you try something else and it takes that away. So I think that's a really good thing for people to hear. Um so the other piece of the more physical aspect of your story is you went from bankruptcy to multiple six figures. And you were left not only sick, but also with this huge debt and without a home. I know you said you studied under Jim Rohn, but like what was that process of pulling yourself out of bankruptcy and becoming really successful?
Belief, just I had this inner knowing ever since I was a little girl. I just had this inner knowing that I was here for a reason, and I had to find that reason. I had to find that purpose, but I felt like somehow I'm going to help change the world. And it's just been almost like stepping stones along the way. As you were talking about the healing modalities, this method fixed that part, this method healed that part. I believe that you you only receive the information that you're ready to process.
Mm,
And it's the case of when the student is ready, the master will appear, right?
mm,
And so you can hear something over and over and over again and you don't get it. And then because you've been doing other work, all of a sudden you'll hear it and the light bulb goes off. Yeah, oh my gosh, I've heard that for the last 5 years and I didn't get it. Ugh.
yeah, and you have to like feel it in your body too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because you're ready to receive that because you're at the level. Like every every little layer that we undo, we actually frequency and vibration. Nikola Tesla had it way back in the 1800s. So if we think of the universe of energy, frequency, and vibration, like it's no accident that these great people of the past already knew it, already knew the great secret.
Yeah.
Us silly humans now are just so overwhelmed with technology that we don't have time to actually be still enough to get that intuition. So I I wanted, because I'd always had this woo side to me, I wanted to still Western medicine was a great apprenticeship for me. It allowed me to understand so much about how the human body worked. And then I just combined that with, right, I know on an energetic level some stuff. And so why not combine the two? I was introduced to uh, functional nutrition, and I thought, well, I'll give this a go because I've always eaten healthily, exercised, even though I was critically unwell. Like there's a connection here. If you can do all the physical body stuff, but if you're not doing the internal work, it doesn't stick.
Mm.
Your body is so toxic in bad energy. And so how can I raise my vibration? Well, by trying something different. And so the the nutrition pathway, I got connected with a beautiful herbal range of nutrition products. I got thrown into this amazing personal development world. I knew how I wanted to help people, which was through nutrition, fitness, and mindset. And I just went to work. And I just, I had never been, well, apart from trying to support my ex-husband in his business. Already back then, because it was a catering business, I went door to door to the businesses to see if they wanted catering in their business. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't have a car. I've got my 2 legs and a walking stick. I'm going to go door to door and let people know what I do. And if they want to get healthy, fix their digestive issues, lose weight, that's how I'll start to get clients. And that's literally what I did. I went door to door. I dropped flyers in letterboxes. And I slowly started to build up a client base. I got to the point where I could support a brick and mortar lease. I expanded the business, and it was incredible. It just started to accelerate to an incredible level that I was now in momentum. I was vibrating at a much higher level, and that in itself is healing. And so my body started to here's a real nerdy science fact for the listeners. We literally regrow a new body around every 90 days. All of the cellular processes, like the cells we have in our body today, weren't even there yesterday. Pardon me. Yes, weren't there yesterday. So we're continually turning over billions of cells. And so if we've got good input, both nutritionally and like nutrition for the brain, listening to personal development, listening to how we can restore our body, reset our body internally, the body is actually going to start vibrating at a higher level. The cells get healthier, the hormone output gets healthier, the energy within the body gets healthier. And so all of this just took me on a trajectory. And because I was so good at mind movies, I started to visualize really out there things of what I wanted to achieve. Like my bucket list is huge. And I'm so blessed. I've probably been to 18, 20 countries. I've lived extraordinary experiences because I saw it all here first. And when you want something, I was prepared to work hard. I did the work. I had the finances. I went and experienced. And so that is just the magic carpet of life. If you just keep believing that anything is possible.
I love that so much. We are so aligned. I want listeners just like stop, pause, rewind. Get my mic. Rewind and listen to that again, because that really is the key, right? And I love that you went door to door, right? Like there is always something you can do right now with the tools that you have available to you. Even if you need a freaking walking stick to walk, right? Like there's always something you can do. And if you're saying there's nothing you can do, it's your own limiting belief or you trying to talk yourself out of something.
It's the story you're telling yourself. Literally, it's the
Exactly.
BS story, because there are people who have, think of Victor, the man who was in the Holocaust. I'll think of his name in a minute. But Tony Robbins even speaks of this man, of being incarcerated in the Holocaust day after day after day and being tortured. And, he went on to be one of the greatest philosophers, teaching the world how to survive and thrive.
Yeah, there's another Holocaust survivor. No, you know her story, Corey Ten Boom. Have you heard her story too? So
No.
her family helped Jewish families escape, and they were like hiding them in their walls. And the Nazis found out, and they put her sister and her father in concentration camps. Her sister and her father died in the camps, and she survived. And then after, like, years later,
Yes.
so she ran into someone who she recognized as a guard at the camp who was particularly cruel to her sister, and he
Yes.
asked for her forgiveness and she gave it, right?
Yes.
Talk about forgiveness, and she felt so free that she ended up touring the world and teaching forgiveness. Like, I just have goosebumps just talking
Me
about that
too.
story, right? Like, these yeah, I mean, it's like if these people who have been in such horrific situations can teach survival and can teach thriving and can teach forgiveness, like, you can too,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So before we, I know we're like, I'm gonna have you back on, by the way, but before we skip over to the woo, you said something interesting. You said that you used to be this go-getter who was like, everyone get out of my way. I want to save the world. Like, tell me a moment about that, because I know people like that. And I think that's really interesting because you still had the personal development mindset. You wanted to help people, but it
Yes.
was
But
it was maybe
but
more ego
I was
driven.
not
Is
a
that what
nice
I'm hearing?
person.
Yeah.
And, I'm so open about that because I had no one else teaching me except a horrible person, and so that's who I was. Um, I didn't go around um, being a nasty person. I was just so self-centered and selfish. Of I'm going to achieve this no matter what attitude. If I've been through this and I can achieve this, then you can. You've got no excuses. That's sort of how I was. I was living life, and I didn't smile. I didn't want people around me. I so I could just be on my mission. And there was a change, a very big change that occurred when I was about 11, 12 years ago. So I was early 40s. But the fact that I wanted to prove that your past didn't define your future, but I just didn't have the right information to do it the right way.
Hmm.
And when you are I was driven by angry desire. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. But the tragedy of that is I didn't know I was angry. I thought I'd done all this work and that I was okay. Isn't it funny that we don't know particular things about ourselves until we know?
Absolutely.
You don't know what you don't know until you
Yeah.
know. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I've been angry all of this time. And there was an event in Singapore. Can I spend a couple of minutes just sharing this story?
I'm really interested in this part. Yes,
Yeah,
please,
because
please. I want to hear it.
this is a wow moment. This was like the major trajectory of who I have become over the last 10, 12, 15 years. And this was a high level leadership a seminar, a conference. It was a weekend conference, and there were lots of international guest speakers. The speakers on stage were Korean, and so it was all through translation. And they were so beautiful. They were about 5 foot nothing, husband and wife for many decades. You could just feel the love oozing out of them. They were just so beautiful. And they had a picture of a big blue door up on the screen. And in if you follow the Buddhist philosophy, the blue door is actually the doorway to joy and happiness. And oh, every time I tell this story, I start to get a very deep feeling in my heart. They put a different slant on it, and they said, "This blue door is actually the doorway to your heart. Is it opened or is it closed?" And I just burst out crying at that point. And my partner's sitting next to me saying, "What's going on?" I just said, "It's okay, don't worry about it." And I just thought, Lisa, for 40 years you've actually tormented yourself and you've had your heart closed so tight. Yes, you've achieved all these things, but you're miserable. So success without fulfillment is misery. And I was miserable. And at that moment, it was just like, whoa. I had this massive heart-opening release. And I cried a lot more. And my partner's going, what's wrong with you? And I just said, I'll tell you later. And I just sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. Whew, I'm getting upset now. And at that moment, that angry desire turned into inspired desire. And my life has never been the same since.
Wow. I have serious goosebumps right now, and you were like making me choke up. I feel like I needed to hear that story, and I'm so grateful to you for sharing it. And I'm sure there's other listeners out here, and there it's so funny, right? Like I was looking at our list of everything to talk about and all these amazing things in quantum physics and epigenetics, and I feel like that was the story. Like that was the story. So I'm so glad that you shared it. And wow, what an amazing moment. Like I to just have that rush, that opening, like I could feel it as you were saying it. So thank you.
There's a
Uh,
lot of change going on in my body right now because I'm reliving it again. It's a massive, massive. Whew.
it reminds me of what you were saying before too, where it's like you can hear the same thing 500 times and then just that one person says it that one way and you've done X, Y, and Z up until that point and it's like bam, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, So I know that you are focusing on people who have been in your shoes, who have been in my shoes, probably still are in my shoes, right? Who are high achievers, were like people who know that they have limitless potential, right? They've played those mind movies, they've studied all the things, like they've heard that thing 500 times, but they haven't had that that
The
like
breakthrough,
the
so to
breakthrough.
speak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
thank you. What is it that holds most people back? I know we were talking about forgiveness, but what else is it? Like what do all those people have in common?
What what I believe is because, the thing that I've really become very, I'm going to say powerful in, and it's okay to toot your own horn. Like, we've all got a gift, right?
Yeah.
You've got your incredible, beautiful gift. I've got mine. And when you know that, you just completely embody it and embrace it and just that has momentum in itself. It's a spiral up. It's very powerful that I can bring the neuroscience and the quantum science with that ancient wisdom all together. It's a bit like a triangle, and within it is the heart. The heart's in the center. um, and the when we can do all of this work on the internal and the external environment, but if we literally don't recode our cells, like our physical cells that still have all of that memory, that's the epigenetic side of it. We literally need to recode our cells to become the version of the person that we need to be, that wants to achieve those things. Otherwise, we just stay here. And so that now is the pathway that I teach. I know because I've done it. I know how to have that staircase to literally recode and rewire the both the physical body and the spiritual body to literally, like, your higher self has already walked the path. It knows how to get there. That's why you see it in your mind. You've just got these blocks that you can't find how to get around them or under them or through them.
So do you think it's like our old programming that's still stuck in our body, even though we can
Yes,
like visualize all that?
1000% yes. 1000%.
Yeah. And I know
It's a
earlier
subconscious program.
yeah. So what is it like what's your method? Is it meditation? What is it?
Yes, it's well, I call it an activation meditation. And of course, it's not a one and done.
Right, of course. Wouldn't that be great if it was?
Ah, wouldn't we all be successful? That's why the
Yeah,
1% is 1%, right?
exactly.
That from a science point of view, it takes 66 days to rewire a new neural pathway for it to become an automatic process. And how many people hang it out 66 days? Like, let's be honest. You the process has to be consistent. So there is actually an evolution of through the chakras that is a recoding process, and it's done literally every day as we're moving up. And so that process is on an internal energetic level reprogramming our subconscious, which then from the brain starts to have a different chemical release on the body, which then coats our cells, coming back to that epigenetics. And so our new cells coming through have a different gene expression of your more happy, joyful, loving, forgiving self, expanding into the version of the person that you want to be to achieve those things.
Yeah, I love that. And you were saying earlier, I wrote it down, cells become addicted to hormones. And I imagine they can also become addicted to success or to this. I mean, well, like you said, it changes the gene expression.
Yes, yes, that's it. We can either be, because do you drink coffee?
I drink decaf coffee.
Okay, damn, I can't use that as an example. Well, all you coffee drinkers out there, or smokers, or the people who need their glass of wine at nighttime, what happens is because that's become a habit, we have our cells have the got the little receptors for the caffeine or the nicotine or the alcohol on its cells. And also for the people who are sad and depressed, you've got receptors for those particular hormones on your cells. And so if you don't feel sad or depressed today, you'll create a crisis. If you don't have your caffeine or your nicotine or your glass of wine, you start to get really agitated or a massive headache. And that's because your physical body is saying, I haven't had my fix. When are you going to give it to me? And as soon as you have it, whoo. So let's flip that onto the positive side. If you flood your body in joy, love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness over and over and over and over again. It's not chanting affirmations in the mirror, by the way. You've got to do that a certain way for it to have a neurological effect. That you will coat your body in all of those beautiful hormones, and that is your state of being. We literally have to change our state of being, and that is the pathway to success.
I love that you really are tying in because it's the quantum physics with the mind movies, right? And the bringing up your frequency and bringing into that new energy and you know reaching out into the quantum field that you can have anything, but it's also like that more grounded aspect of like no, you literally need to change your biology, right?
You do. You do. It's a cellular level as well as a spiritual energetic level.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, like, as you were talking, like, we all know those people who they're like, "Oh, I'll be happy." They complain about something and it's like, "What would make you happy if this happened?" And then that happens and then there's something else, right? And then they're still unhappy. And as you were saying that, it's like, yeah, they need their fix of
Yeah.
depression or their fix of
Yes.
victimhood. That's a big one, right? Or their
Yes.
their fix of, complaining.
Yep.
So, okay.
You can actually see the patterns in people. If things are going too well and they're used to being miserable, something will happen to put them back into that state.
Yeah.
If they don't do it, they will attract it.
Yeah. So, we've kind of gone in this one direction. Like, we have maybe 5 minutes left. Like, what else do you feel like we need to talk about today that listeners need to hear or that we didn't touch on?
Kris, right at the beginning, when you were just reading out my little bio, I think the true essence of who I am is to plant the seeds of hope in people,
Mm.
that they they are already abundant. There is already abundance around them. They are already limitless. They just have to learn the sequence of events and be prepared to do the work and be consistent at doing the work. And then all of their wildest dreams will actually come true.
I love that. What a beautiful message to end on. And I'm sure everyone listening is dying to know how they can work with you. So please tell us a little bit about how you work with people, where that we can find you, social media, whatever.
Yes, thank you. So my first name is Lisa. My surname is Marree. People get that a bit mixed up, but you can find me at lisamarree.com. So LISAMARREE.com. And I have a beautiful free activation meditation on my homepage of a morning inner power. So, people can go and get a little bit of a taste of how I do things. I also have a work with me page on there that if people do want to look at working with me, various options, they can just go to that page. My main platform is LinkedIn, and so it is my name, Lisa Marree, Marree, and I have just started a YouTube channel, so I'm going to be doing lots of videos on a regular basis there as well, with a lot of PD stuff going into the superconscious world and all sorts of things.
What's your YouTube channel?
Lisa Marree Unlimited.
All right, I'm gonna follow you too. And I'll have all
Thank
of
you
those
so
links
much.
in the show notes as well. So if you're listening and you didn't catch all of it, it's all there. Um, Amazing. You are such an inspiration. I feel inspired after talking to you. I'm sure other people feel just as touched. So thank
Thank
you for
you.
your time. I would absolutely love to have you back on the show and we can get more into, oh my gosh, astral travel and moving energy and the
Yes.
quantum field and all the things that I was taking notes of as you were talking that we didn't even get to. And if you are listening and this resonated, please like, comment, share, subscribe, send it to someone who you think could use it. And I will see you all on the next episode. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
No, thank you so much.